I want you to get your Bible and go with me to the book of Mark. And I want you to find Mark chapter number 9. Mark chapter 9. I'm going to let you remain seated today, but I do want to read a couple of verses, and I'm going to give you a message that God put heavy on my heart for just this service. And I believe that it's going to speak to all of us, and I believe that we'll be reminded of it tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday, and I believe it's going to change us based on what the Lord says to us today. Mark chapter 9, and I want to begin reading in verse number 38. And John answered him, saying, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and he followeth not us. And we forbade him because he followeth not us. But Jesus said, Forbid him not, for there is no man which shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me. For he that is not against us is on our part. Now watch verse 41. For whosoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name, because ye belong to Christ, verily I say unto you, he shall not lose his reward. I want to touch on verse 41 again. Whosoever shall give you a cup of water, look at the end of the verse, he shall not lose his reward. Father, I pray that you would speak so clearly, guide my thoughts, direct my words, and God, may you do a work that I know I cannot do. For every person that is here, there's a different message that is needed. And God, I'm trusting you now to speak to your people as you know they need to receive instruction. I know what you said to me, and Lord, I pray that you would speak likewise to every person in this building. I'll praise you for what you do, and it is in Jesus' name I pray. And God's people said, Amen. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and he'll hear this sermon. He listens to everything that we put on YouTube. He pastored in the same church for many years. And over the last year, God began to change his ministry and began to lead him out of the pastorate and in another direction. He and I were talking this morning, and he said this to me. He said, it's amazing that you can pour into the lives of people for so many years, and then when you go through something, the people that you've poured into, many of them do not pour back into you. I remember my pastor, Brother Brown. Many of you got to meet and love Brother Larry. And I remember Brother Brown when Parkinson's was to the point that he could no longer travel and no longer preach out on the road and really couldn't even pastor there in South Carolina. He had been on the road for close to 50 years in revivals and meetings and big services and all over the country. And when he was forced to stop preaching, I remember one day he said this to me, through trembling voice and shaking body, with a real sense of hurt in his voice. He said, it is amazing how fast people forget you. And that hurt my heart for my preacher. But I thought to myself, it's true. And I want to say to you that if we are not careful, we can end up discontent, aggravated, and close to bitter, if not all the way there, because we often invest in others, and it seems like sometimes that investment is not returned back to us. Now, some of y'all are acting real spiritual, like you don't struggle with that. Let me just bring it down to where we live. Have you ever been walking in a business and somebody is coming in behind you, or they're coming in as you're going out, and you just hold the door open for them and let them proceed without having to grab the door handle? And if they say thank you, then we're happy with our decision to extend kindness. And all the carnal people already know what preacher's about to say. But you let them keep walking like it's your job to hold the door for them, like you are supposed to just because of who they are. It makes me want to run, tackle them, man, woman, boy, child, girl, I don't care. Tackle them, drag them back out by their ankles and say, get the door yourself. Now, y'all may not be like, that's just me. Or you're driving through a parking lot and somebody's trying to cross over the driving lane and you stop to let them go in front of you. You owe me a head nod. Can I get an amen? You owe me a wave, mouth, do something to let me know that you realize I was just good to you, because trust me, baby, this truck can roll just like it stopped. Amen. Now, how many of you are with me now? We want reciprocation for what we have done for others. And if you're not careful, you will end up bitter and jaded and discontent with life, because everybody's not going to say, appreciate it. And we have to be very careful that we do not let what others didn't do affect what we do. Now, that's exactly what Jesus is dealing with in this text. He said, if someone gives you a cup of cold water, and they do it in my name, they will never lose their reward. And whatever you do, whether it's kindness outside of church, whether it is serving the Lord within the walls of this ministry, whether it is preferring others daily on your job or at the ball field or just in life, if you do it for the glory of God, there is a reward that you cannot lose. But if you are serving others to receive a thank you, it's a real gamble. And I don't know how much I ought to just prepare you for life, but it's a gamble that you're probably going to lose. We don't serve others for a thanks. We serve others to glorify God. Now, I want to show you three truths out of this text. The first one is this: good people get this wrong. Good people get this truth wrong. Do you know who it was that Jesus is talking to in Mark, where we're in 9? It's John the Beloved. Let's just be honest, it was the class pet. John was the teacher's pet. He was the favorite. He was the one that Jesus always showed more attention to. He was the one that always got it right. He was the best of the best. But even John needed to be corrected about the motives of his service. And Jesus said to John, John, come on, man, you're at the top of the class. You're the best I've got. You're supposed to be helping these others get it right. But John, I'll tell you, because even the good get it wrong, John, we don't do what we do for others' appreciation. We do it for the glory of God and to honor Him. My friend that I was talking to this morning, a great pastor, a loving preacher, talented beyond belief, and a wonderful family. And I've preached revivals for him and have known him for years, and I have no doubt that and that's what I reminded him of this morning. I said, hey, whether they are pouring back into you or not, what you did was for God. It was through them, but it was to Him. I said, and whether they appreciate it and see it or not, your reward is reserved in heaven. And even good people, sometimes we get our eyes off of that truth that we're not serving others for others' sake. We're serving others for God's sake. These folks in the music ministry, I really think, you know what we're going to do one Sunday? Y'all tell me what you think about this. One Sunday, I'm going to have this wall, you know those wall-to-wall mirrors that you sometimes see? I'm going to have a mirror put wall-to-wall on this green wall. And I'm going to let y'all look at y'all while we're having church. Because some of you look like your mother-in-law has moved in and is going to stay until her last day on planet Earth. I'm talking about depression. Heavy burdens represented in the house of God. And we're singing about Jesus coming back, and I believe, and we're singing about His faithfulness. And there's people sitting in the crowd like they are the newest member of the Bless Me If You Can club. Come on now, you can do better than that. Send me something else. And I say the music people all the time, they don't sing to y'all, they sing to Him. Now I hope you're blessed by it, but they're not singing to y'all, they're singing to Him. Because trust me, if they were singing to y'all, them songs wouldn't be so peppy. They'd be singing gloom, despair, and agony on me. Oh, there'd be a tear in the beer. Come on, y'all, help me. It'd be songs of sorrow and sadness. But their songs don't reflect your faces. We're hoping that your faces will reflect their songs. These people that serve in children's ministry, you know, they serve every week. And they serve all the time. And they're taking care of your little blessings. And I use that term loosely. While we're over here having church. And there'll be times where people come and get those kids, and the kid will be crying, and they look at the worker like, what did you do to my baby? And truth of the matter is, your baby was crying when it got here. We ain't done nothing to your baby. And it's not always appreciation reflected. But those folks that serve there, and some of them are in here today, they'll tell you they do what they do for God. Because if you're running a tally of thank yous and appreciativeness, you won't do anything long. You have to do it for God's glory. And here's what I want to tell you. If you've ever felt like I'm not doing this anymore because nobody appreciates it, that's the wrong motive, but that doesn't mean that you're the wrong person for the job. Because even good people get this wrong. You have to bring it back into perspective. I do what I do, not for others. I do it for Jesus. It is simply channeled through the lives of others. You know, we're a funny bunch. We are. We're a funny bunch because oftentimes even good motives are mingled in our expectation of an outcome that we desire. And if we don't get the outcome we desire, those good motives, they get shot dead on site. A friend of mine was driving down last year as a young preacher out of Virginia, and he was driving down here to go turkey hunting with me. And he got up early on a Monday morning after serving in his church and got on the road leaving out of Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee, that area. And coming down the road, he got sick. He had some food poisoning. He'd eat something and it caught up to him on the road. Well, he pulls over at a truck stop, and I'll save you the brutal details, but he's just sick as a dog, food poisoning. And he's out in the parking lot of this truck stop, and he's just sick as a dog. And as he is in the process of being sick, everybody on the same page? Okay, I'm trying to be. So as he is violently sick in this parking lot, a voice behind him says, "Son, I used to be just like you." Well, he bloodshot eyes. He looks up and says, "Sir?" The guy said, "Before I met Jesus." He said, "I used to be just like you." He said, "I let the devil take me down that same path." Well, my buddy wipes his mouth, clears the sweat from his forehead. He said, "Oh, no, sir." He said, I'm a Christian. The guy said, I thought I was too. He said, no, for real. He said, I'm a preacher. He said, I serve at a church. He said, I'm saved. I'm a preacher. The guy said, oh, okay. Walked off, gets in his car and leaves. No more need for me to be a Christian here. This job's done. Now, what did he think? He thought he found somebody who was at the end of a real wild weekend. And he was going to tell them about Jesus and get them saved. But once his good motives didn't lead into the desired outcome, peace out. You could help a fellow brother out in the Lord. I just want to throw that out there. You don't have to just be nice to people that's coming off of a wild weekend. But a lot of times that's how we minister. We have good motives. They really are good motives. But mingled in with those good motives, we have a desired outcome that we've already thought through. And when it doesn't go that way, all of a sudden our good motives, they die on sight. And we are discontented with our mission because the mission is not necessarily carrying out like we thought it would. It doesn't mean that you're not a Christian. It doesn't mean that you're not the one for the job. It just means that even good people like John the Beloved, they get this wrong. Can we just stop right here and can we all get on the same page and say, preacher, I struggle with this because I often silently demand that others show appreciation if I am going to continue to be good to them. Let me just see hands all over the building. I'll preach online next week. That's good. We'll catch up with everybody else. Good people get this wrong. Good people get this wrong. But we've got to get it right. The second thing that I want to show you is not only do good people get this truth wrong, but notice that the master must be our motivation. The master must be our motivation. In other words, you must do what you're doing for the Lord. And if you are doing it for the Lord, how others receive it is regardless. Because I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for Him. But that is often channeled through others. That's one of my big problems with people that say, well, I don't have to go to church to be a Christian. There are avenues of service available within the house of God that make our walk with God measurable, and that's what most people who want to go to heaven without going to church, that's what they want, is they do not want a measurable walk with God. They don't want to serve. They don't want to submit. They don't want to be faithful. They don't want to be treated wrong and still have to treat other people right. And so they've concocted this idea of Christianity that is not in the Bible. If you are going to heaven, you ought to want to go to church. And if you are going to church, your walk with God becomes measurable. Because it can be looked at through attendance. It can be looked at through giving. It can be looked at through servanthood. It can be looked at in when you was treated wrong at church. How did you act to the person that treated you wrong? And there are measurables that come with being a child of God that is faithful to the house of God. But you have to keep this tucked in your heart. Everything I do for Jesus. And everything I do for the glory of God. And here's what that does. That alleviates the people around me from having to meet a certain standard for me to continue to be good to them. Because I'm doing this for God. There are things that God will ask us to do for people that we'd rather not do it for. And that's when you have to remember, I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for Him. Can I say this? You might want to write this down. What you do for unappreciative people says more about you than it does them. Our servanthood and our kindness, when it is rejected and we continue to serve and we continue to be kind and we continue to be good to others, that says way more about us than it does them, because we're not doing it for them, we're doing it for Him. I'm going to confess something. Y'all, I'm going to be very honest, and I've been trying to deal with this lately. And I've mentioned it before in service, and I've mentioned it to people in the church in conversation, and this is something I'm really working on. I'm working on my reactions versus my actions. Because my actions, most of the time, if I have time to think about what I'm going to do, I will get my actions right. You know what I'm saying? If I know what's coming, I can process it, and I can say, this is what I ought to do. It may not be what I want to do, but this is what I ought to do. But here's where I struggle. I struggle with when my first plan didn't go well, and then my response to that is where I often drop the ball. I'm the guy that opens the door, but when they don't say thank you, I want to snatch them by the hair of their head, pull them out. See, that my action was I should open the door, but my reaction is, you ingrateful, unthankful, get back outside. And sometimes God will let others be unappreciative to show us who we really are when things don't go the way we wanted them to. That's why we have to open that door for Jesus and let whoever else come through. That's why we have to stop in traffic for Jesus and let whoever cross in front. That's why we have to serve for Jesus and let others be the recipient of that service, but never forget you're doing it for God. Others are just in the path between you and Him. Here's a verse, Colossians chapter 3 and verse number 23. Paul said, "And whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men." Now note, he says, do it with all of your heart. But do it as to the Lord and not unto men. Look at me right here. That verse, if you could incorporate that into your daily life, that verse will get you a promotion at work. That verse will elevate you in the eyes of people whose opinion matters. That verse would change your marriage. That verse would change the relationship you have with your children, young or grown and gone. If we were to do everything we do with all of our heart as though we were doing it for the Lord, it would absolutely change our daily life. And that must be the motivation of our heart. Now, I want to show you this. He said in Mark 9:41, let's just start from there. Is anybody getting any help today? Is this helping anybody? Okay. Look at Mark 9:41 again. He said, "Whosoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name," look at the end of the verse, "verily I say unto you, he shall not lose his reward." Here's the third thing I want you to understand. If I'm doing it for Jesus, okay, my reward is the same despite someone's reaction to my action. Does that make sense? If I'm doing it for God, and He said there's a reward for a simple act of giving out a cup of water, if I'm doing it for Him, my reward is the same no matter what somebody does with what I have done. How many of you agree with that? Okay, so God's keeping a record book, and when I do it for Him, to others, but I do it to Him and it's channeled through others, God is the one keeping the record of my reward. Brother Tyler, I'll tell you what I'll do. I need a cup of water. I held up $20 and he jumped. This man has a family at home. Amen. Small children. If you get me a cup of water, I'll give you $20. And I actually do need a cup of water right now, so that works out perfect. We camped this weekend up at Blanton Creek, so if you're sitting beside somebody whose back hurts and they've got red eyes, they were probably on the camping trip with us, all right? Don't look at them and say, before I met Jesus. Don't do that to them. They may already know Him. Thank you, Brother Tyler. I appreciate it. That's an expensive cup of water, but I'll take it. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I needed a cup of water, and I'm thankful that he got it. And I think $20 is a pretty good price to pay for a cup of water. So thank you for my cup of water, and I appreciate you going to get it. It's a blessing. I'll tell you what I'll do. If you'll go get me another cup of water, I'll give you $20. Y'all going to Wendy's today. Get that five. Wendy's got the 5 for $5. Hallelujah. So I need a cup of water, and I'm going to pay him the same thing for that cup of water. It's important to understand that the reward is the same. It's important to understand that the record God keeps is the same. Not a thanks, not appreciate it, cup and all. Brother Tyler, I need a cup of water. If you would be so kind to get me. And I'm still paying, baby. We ain't broke yet. The reward is the same. His act of service is the same. The reaction to his service may change, but the reward and his responsibility has remained the same. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Hallelujah. You know, I'm thankful that you went and got me this. You didn't have to do that, but I appreciate it. Thank you. You should have spoke up because I'm now broke. Got to learn to read the market, Brother Philip. I appreciate it. 3 reactions to the same act of service. Hold up your money. Does she already have it? Does Mary Ann already have it? Hold it up. Hold that money up. The same reward in spite of my reaction. Do you see that? Thank you. And when you serve God through others, they can say thank you and then disregard what you've done. They can not say thank you and be completely unappreciative, or they can act like they owe you the rest of their life. It doesn't matter, because the reward is not in the thank you. The reward is in heaven when God said, that's it. And He makes a note. And the reward is not in others' reaction. I'll finish my water. I want to come for invitation. I've been preaching 21 years out of this same pulpit. I can't go anywhere in Harris County, Columbus, Phoenix City. I can't go anywhere around here without seeing someone that has been connected here, if not deeply involved, everywhere I go. And some have left good, some are still wonderful friends, and others have left bad, and there was bad blood, and there was tension and problems. And I used to get so mad when I would see somebody out and about, and I would think, man, I did this for them, and now they won't even speak to me. I gave up this to go be a help to them, and now they're going to snob me. I helped one guy. I remember they were building these apartments up here on Moon Road and Veterans Parkway. And I drove by, and they were building 3-story apartments. And I said to Amy, who in the world would live on the 3rd floor of an apartment? And then I said, and who in the world would help them move in? The next week, I'm toting boxes up to the 3rd floor of same said apartments. And the guy that I helped move wasn't long, a year or so, he got away from God, got backslid, got out of church, back in the world. And I saw him out and he wouldn't even speak to me. I wanted to go back to his apartment, get all them boxes and sling them out. And I did. I struggled for years because I was keeping a record. But my reward is not how you appreciate what I've done. My reward is God writing down the heart with which I did it. And one day He will repay. And His rewards are bigger than your thank yous. We were on vacation, Amy and I were. We were in the mountains. We were in Pigeon Forge. Had a big old cabin rented and up there for a few days. And one of our men, this has been years ago, one of our men called and said, "Preacher," said they've run a little test on my heart and said they told me that I've got to go into emergency surgery in the morning. And he said, "I'll be honest with you." He said, "I'm terrified." He said, "I don't know if I'm going to make it through this." Said it's so severe. Said they've told me they don't know if I'm going to make it through this. And he said, "Preacher, it would mean the world for me, to me, if you would come pray with me in the morning." Now, he didn't know I was on vacation. And I hung up that phone and I thought to myself, Lord, y'all don't tell, I wouldn't do this for him. But I feel led to do this for you. And I drove down 6 hours, prayed with him that morning, and called our vacation a little short. And from that moment to this, it changed my mode of service. Because when I'm doing it for Him, it's irrelevant how others react to it. We'll be out in town now and I'll see people and I'll hug their neck, be talking to them. And we'll walk off and Amy will go, "Do you know who that was?" And I'll say, "Yeah." She'll say, "Do you not remember what they did to you?" And honestly, I really don't most of the time. See, when you serve Him, it'll give you a little spiritual amnesia where you stop keeping score. Some of y'all remember every cross look somebody's given you since 5th grade. You mad at people who made fun of you at the water cooler in middle school. But when you start serving Him and lift your eyes a little higher than them, He'll give you a little spiritual amnesia to where you can just skate through life with joy that people cannot take away if they don't act right because those people didn't give it to you. Stop living for the applause of others. Stop living for the appreciation of others. Stop living your life to try to make others stand in awe of you and say, "Lord, I want to be a servant. I want to be kind. I want to be humble. I want to be a vessel of your love." And if people say thank you, then good. But if they don't even acknowledge it, that's fine too. I'm doing this for you through them.